Hello, welcome everyone to our next virtual networking event of Empower Africa. My name is Shai Bernstein. I'm head of business development at Empower Africa, and it's a pleasure and honor to host all of you here and our distinguished guests and speakers as well. Today's event, food security and business opportunities doing well while doing good. It's amazing to see how many people here from different countries, from different continents. Of course, everybody interested in one thing, and that is agriculture in Africa, as a very wide, title of discussion. But specifically here, we're discussing the importance of food security, but also the amazing business opportunities that are held in this great mission of food security across the continent. As we call it, and other people call it as well, doing well while doing good. It's a pleasure and honor to host everyone here and our distinguished speakers as well. For those of you joining us for the first time, this is a virtual networking event. I see that there are quite a few people who haven't necessarily turned on their mic and camera, so just a quick explanation. On the bottom side of the screen, you'll see an icon of a camera and a mic. You just gotta press it and make sure that that way you're visible and people can hear you and see you, and you just double click between the different chairs so you can meet more people. The agenda for today, we just had a networking session of 30 minutes. We now have a few welcoming remarks, and we're going to start the investors panel. After that, we have another networking session, followed by the implementers panel. And to end the event, we'll have some more time to network so you guys can continue to connect with each other and create meaningful relationships. Before we continue, for those of you joining us for the first time, Empower Africa is a business community with a mission to drive investment, trade, and job creation in Africa. Business is the best way to grow, build, and create sustainable and scalable solutions. We believe in bringing good people together, right? That's where the magic happens. And our goal is to create the connections, optimize the communication, and maximize on the collaboration that can happen. Just now, I've already seen on the chat different people presenting themselves like they always do in our events, but also people already catching up and networking and saying, hey, you should listen to the opportunities we have in South Africa. You should hear about this. Let's connect. And that is the goal of this event on the networking side. In addition, of course, we have premium content today, 2 fascinating panels, which I'll get to in a minute. For those of you who are not yet members of the Empower Africa Business Network, I highly recommend you join. On both sides of the screen, there is an icon of register to the network. You could just click that, or look at the general chat. You'll see there a link that I posted, and I'll post another one briefly because there have been a lot of messages since. We've just reached last week over 16,000 members. The concept of the Empower Africa business community of the network is to bring together all the relevant stakeholders who are doing business in Africa. So that's investors, banks, PEs, VCs, entrepreneurs, government officials, nonprofits, all the relevant stakeholders in one place to enhance the communication and collaboration. Within the network, there are different communities. So there's an energy community and many more. And so I urge you to sign up. It takes about 60 seconds to sign up, and it's free, like I mentioned. You could also, of course, download the app. There's both Apple and Android app. So please do that so you can hear more about our events, see more about what we're doing, and so that, again, to enhance the communication and collaboration. It's my honor, before we start, my honor and pleasure to present the founder and CEO of Empower Africa. To be honest, the man that, without him, none of us would be here today, and Empower Africa wouldn't exist. Ezzy Rappaport, to say a few welcoming words. Ezzy, you could turn on your mic and camera.
Thank you very much, Shai, and for organizing the Empower Africa's agriculture event. And I want to thank everybody for coming from all over the world, and for our speakers for coming and sharing their thought leadership. I'm very excited about the upcoming panels, and especially agriculture. Agriculture is good business. It's business to be proud of. It's a critical sector for economic growth in Africa. It's the backbone of most of the country's economies, with about 25%, almost 25% of Africa's GDP being agriculture. And with the majority of of many countries' populations in Africa working in agriculture, working in subsistence farming. So this sector that we're addressing today is one of the most critical sectors to focus on in Africa, and one of the highest priorities that Empower Africa has as a business community. It's very important for us to explore. There's so much. It's the backbone, and it's so much of the economy. But there's so much more to develop by integrating and introducing new technologies, by introducing and distributing better education, by promoting trade within Africa and internationally. There is so much more that we could do with the sector, and that takes a lot of consistent communication, consistent networking, and really strengthening Africa's agriculture business community. And that's what we're doing here today. And this is, as I said, agriculture is good business. It's holy business, really, because aside from just helping countries build their self-reliance, reducing their imports, working on getting proper diverse crops and diverse food in countries is extremely important. There's still about 250 million people that are malnourished in Africa. And that is something that is unacceptable. And that unacceptable situation is really something that we're looking to address today. So on one hand, you could make money in agriculture, and that's a very important message that we need to communicate around the world, get more investment into agriculture, get more technology that's used internationally to be introduced in Africa as well. And at the same time, we have to really support the local farmers with local education and see how to get the right nutrition and the right crops distributed locally. So thank you all so much for being part of our community, for coming together, and look forward to a great event. God bless.
Thank you very much, Ezzy. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the investors panel. So may I ask, I know that Jerry had some technical issues, unfortunately. We'll see if he's able to join us. William and Tsito and Jerry, please turn on your mic and camera and join me. Okay, so we have Tsito Raharison, Head of Investments at Signature Agri Investments. Thank you for joining us, Tsito.
Hi, Shai. Hey, everyone. Good
And
to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
William Nyaoke, Regional Director of East Africa at NorFund. William, great to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you. Thanks.
Okay, so I'd like to start by asking both of you to just maybe present yourselves briefly, share a bit about yourself, about the company, about what is working on these days. Okay, William, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks a lot, Shai, for having us in this panel. My name is William Nyaoke. I work for NorFund based out of Nairobi. I hope you can hear me well.
Yep.
Yep. So I cover East Africa together with my colleagues here. So for East Africa for us is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Rwanda. I also have colleagues in West Africa, Ghana, covering that region, and Southern Africa in Cape Town, covering the Southern Africa region of the continent. We are the Norwegian DFI. We invest primarily to scale sustainable businesses in the continent. And agriculture is one of our primary sectors that we focus on as an institution. So we invest both equity and debt and anything in between. We invest for expansion, and our primary impact measurement is creation of jobs within the continent. So that's really what we are about. And I look forward to this conversation. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, we'd love to hear, some more about what NorFund is working on, but we'll get there in a minute. Tsito, I see you have some connectivity issues. Can you hear us?
It looks like it's
Okay, yeah, please.
Super. So hi, Shai. Hi, everyone. So I'm Tsito Raharison, and I'm the head of investment at Signature Agri Investment, formerly UFF. Actually, we just rebranded two days ago. So it's quite a new chapter, and it's the first event actually that we are doing under the new brand. So happy to have it on Empower Africa. So maybe in a few words, what we do basically, Signature is we are an agri investor. We do two things: we invest in agriculture and invest in Africa. So that's pretty simple. We invest. Our core focus is in primary production, but then we also invest throughout the entire value chain as well, up to processing. We don't have any restriction on regions. We do the entire continent. So now we are present in Morocco, Nigeria, Zambia, Malawi, where we have active investments, and we're looking at expanding other markets like Angola, for instance. So looking forward to the panel and also to network with the rest of the group later.
Great. Okay, so we're going to dive right into it. So I put together a few questions that, of course, I shared with you guys before, because I think that one of the most important things, that we want to speak about here, and the title of the event, right? I find that many times I speak to different people, throughout, US, Europe, across the continent, Asia, and many times it's kind of split, right? It's the aid aspect and food security, and then you have, beautiful, wonderful people that want to help and want to make an impact and are talking about, there are more than 500 million people living in extreme poverty, and we have to fix it, we have to change it. Some of these people have more resources than others, but that's kind of one group that I see very often. And then there's, of course, the private sector, business side, that many times are, naturally looking at the bottom line more than anything, because they have to as a business, right, to some extent. But as we all know, and it's becoming more and more, acceptable and known to everyone, and this is exactly what we want to promote and highlight, these two groups, these two directions can and must work together. Because when we look at food security across the continent, obviously all over the world, right? But for now, we're talking about, Empower Africa. It can work together. It should work together. There are millions of people around the world that, don't have enough food to eat, and that their diet, suffers tremendously. And there are ways to create these programs, to have different projects in different countries and different regions that are profitable and can be even very profitable, and at the same time tackling and solving this pressing issue, right? And so I'd like to ask, both of, it's a general question of both of you, love to hear your opinion. So we could start with you, maybe William. What are you looking for as an investor, right? At the end, NorFund, and feel free, of course, to elaborate more about your activities at NorFund. What are you looking for as an investor in a food security project? Because obviously NorFund many times from different people, right? Different projects. What are you looking for as an investor?
Thanks, Alosha. I think this is a very interesting question. And from where we sit as an institution, our role is really to mobilize private sector capital into agriculture for a sustainable future, right? And the way we look at sustainability is, businesses should be able to be profitable so that they can stand on their own feet and grow to create opportunities and to feed the continent in the long term. And for that reason, when we look at agri opportunities that come our way, there are four main things that we focus on. And one of them is really what is the size of the opportunity that this particular project is trying to fit into. And that looks at about, what's the size of the market, what is the market gap that they're solving. And we often find that there's underproduction, there's over demand. And what are they doing to actually access the demand, right? So that's one. Is about the partners that are promoting this project. So often we are a minority investor. So we rely on someone else to actually develop the project or have been in that particular business, and therefore they're expanding, right? So for us, when we come in as a minority investor, we're looking for someone who has experience, the necessary expertise, and really the capacity to execute on whichever strategy they're presenting to us, right? So that is very important. And in certain cases where we've not done well, we've often found that the partner that we went with either did not have the right skill set or do not have the capacity to execute, or maybe do not have the knowledge in that particular sector. So that's also very important for us. Number 3 is about the primary ag risks that are related to climate risk, right? So how does that particular project mitigate climate risk particularly? Because what we've seen is, extreme weather, whether it is drought or floods, tend to just destabilize primary agriculture. You plant at the wrong time, you don't harvest what you had expected, or you probably just lose everything just because the rains didn't come. So that number 3 for us. And number 4 is ESG. So environmental and social governance is primary and is key for us in all our ag-related projects, because this is about people, this is about land use, this is about water use, so this is about waste management. So these are things that for us are extremely important. And when you put all that together, we want to see these projects that are sustainable in a manner that they are actually profitable, right, in the long run. So that's really how we size and dice our opportunities.
Fantastic.
Well,
Tsito, go ahead.
I think William has said everything kind of like we're looking as well, but maybe to add a little bit on what you mentioned on the market. Our experience is actually, that's one of the things that is often missing, in the investment proposal that we have, in a sense that some promoters or project come with, let's grow a specific crop because it can grow into a certain region. But when you dig into the question, but have you identified a market? Do you have an offtake already, or have you done some work on the market? Then you see that's a lag. But that's where we come in as well, because we have that experience on the market, so we can actually do the market linkage and help the companies to do that access. So the market is very important. We look at demand-driven project, and that for us is like a quick criteria, is like which market is this addressing? So I agree with William on that. Since you are like very focused on primary production, we actually go deep into understanding, as William say, what are the climate risks? What are the ag risk? What's the ag potential of the site where they want to do the production? Are they targeting, for example, if it's a project that is doing export, are they targeting a specific market window? When they're going to be into the market, is it actually a lucrative market window, or are they going to compete with bigger player or the rest of the world? So these are considerations you look at. Same, from logistics, what's the time to market? Either it's, on export or local, what are the bottlenecks within the logistics? So these are things we look. And from our side, I think it's also important the scale. And you talk about food security, and basically Signature is looking at a more like large commercial farming enterprises and agricultural project. So look at projects that actually have the scale to respond to the volumes that the market are requiring, either it be on the local market or on the export market, because that scale for us is actually a guarantee of the sustainability as well. And definitely, as William said, and for us actually it's really embedding into our due diligence process and screen and oil look at investment, the sustainability from all the angle. The first questions that we usually ask ourselves and our IC or investors are asking us is the water. How is the water situation on one project? So on the chat, for example, I saw someone making a comment to come, as a project, but there is a drought or water issues. And it's definitely that situation where you look at the accessibility of water and the sustainability. So those are elements that you look in the first hurdles we look in a project to to see if that's going to be viable or not. And then obviously, as William said, the operating partner looking at the track record, either it's developing the project, because often we do greenfield projects, or on the development side or on the operation. So what are the capabilities of the team or the company that we have in front of us?
I think that one of the most, I mean, I can say for one that constantly I meet entrepreneurs, organizations, whether they're nonprofit or governmental entities or other NGOs, many wonderful people and organizations, and not to mention, of course, the actual agronomists and kind of technical people that are experts and know how to implement and make some of these things happen and have the know-how how to do it. Usually the biggest component that's missing is you guys. It's usually, I hear them saying, we're looking for funding, right? Which always, of course, is, I guess it just emphasizes the need of the Empower Africa Business Network, right? Which is why we're doing what we're doing. But I meet investors, I meet organizations, I meet DFIs who have funds and are looking for viable projects. And so, I constantly am busy trying to connect these people with each other to have a conversation and see if something can happen, right? And I just to name a few of my friends and people that I've met throughout the past few years who are here now, whether it's Perry or whether it's Jonathan from Peers Program or John, there are multiple people here that I know that they're working on some very interesting projects. And so I'm just encouraging everyone here to reach out to William and Tsito with your project, if you'd like. If I can help in any way, of course, speak to me or anybody else from the Empower Africa team, and we're happy to connect and share the materials to see if there's something relevant on that end. So I just wanted to take a moment to kind of acknowledge that and emphasize that. Next question, can you guys share, please, and Tsito, we'll start with you. Can you share a project that you are working on now or have been working on that has, the elements that we're talking about here? It can be something that has been successful or is successful, or maybe even something that isn't successful, right? So that we can learn from it. Any insights that you have, please.
Maybe, and then that will kind of like a segue on your funding discussion, funding comment. So recently we launched a fund in Malawi, which is an Agri fund and focused on Malawi only, which is basically a fund that has been anchored by Old Mutual, one of our shareholder, and invested where the investors are actually local institutional investors. So it's Malawian, capital mobilized in Malawi. That is important for us because I think it's often, you don't see those kind of, like local funds set up. So we set up that fund back in 2019, and we started with two new investments, which are both into the macadamia value chain. So if you talk about food security, you might ask, okay, like macadamia can solve food security in Malawi. And the way you look at it like in a more holistic manner, because when we invest in it, we're looking at a value chain, an export-oriented value chain that actually enable the country to diversify the export base. Malawi is now mainly relying on tobacco. It's like almost 500 million, I think, or 600 million last year of export revenue out of tobacco. It's like 55% of their export earnings. So the country is trying to diversify that. And it turns out actually Malawi is one of the, I think, top 5 or top 6 producer of macadamia in the world. Macadamia is only 1% of the nut industry, but it's a growing category with the demand for healthy, nutritious food, and snack in the world. So that can be a huge, really good base for Malawi to actually increase their export revenue and also have like a long-term, infrastructure, agri-infrastructure. Right. So that's kind of the approach that we had. So we actually invested in 2 large companies with the objective actually of building a processing factory to crack the macadamia in Malawi, and then to export it to the world.
Right.
So that's kind of the macro view of it. But then the project itself actually generated over, positive externalities, because we are working with outgrowers. We have like program for outgrowers that we develop around it, which also like for export products. We develop because of the sustainability angle that you're looking at. We're trying to leverage the need for pollination services to develop a bee, like a beehive program actually around the macadamia, which in addition provide sources of income to the communities we are engaged. So that's a project which is quite recent, 2 years now, and we think you're on the right path for a success. But I think it's kind of an inspiration in terms of when you say, is there funding? There is actually. That's the reality. There is capital there, and sometimes our problem is to fund the project. So I think that's you're right. We need to to engage, because on our side, definitely this is we are looking for more project like that we can fund.
Wonderful. William, please.
Thanks a lot. I think Tsito put it very well. From our perspective as investors, on that question of capital, for us, we look for business case that actually can generate profit, right? So when someone comes to us with a project, it's not just about the idea. I think you need to demonstrate that this thing can actually scale, and this is the path to making money. So that's really how we look at these things. And at the end of the day, it's the work of the entrepreneur to demonstrate that to us that actually they have the capacity to do it. And this is the opportunity, and this is how they're going to that opportunity into money. And if that story is not coming out well, we continue looking for bankable where the gap is. Now, in terms of what we've gotten involved in the past, I'll give a case of a sugar project that we just concluded in Tanzania last year. I won't mention the name for confidentiality purposes, but in terms of having the elements of the things we're looking for, Tanzania happens to be a net importer of sugar. So the local production does not meet the demand. So this particular opportunity, or this particular company being one of the producers there, was looking for capital to expand their capacity to produce for local market. So that becomes very interesting for us, because the demand, the supply demand gap is very clear. They actually have to import sugar into the country to meet that demand. So for us, it becomes like a import substitution play for the country, because it helps them to save on the forex that they're using to import the sugar. In terms of the partner, these are guys who have been doing this thing for like 20 years. I've grown from very low capacity to more than $100,000 tons per annum in capacity. And the investment is actually going to expand that by almost a third, right? So then you see that this investment is going to have done this for many years. They have the capacity, they've invested their own money, they have a lot to lose if this doesn't work, and they have the experience to actually make it happen. Yeah. And then you look around, how are they impacting the community? How many jobs are they creating? And going back to the point Tsito made about, outgrowers, right? So for you who know how the sugar plantations work, you have your nucleus, and then you have even more coming from the outgrowers. And that for us is the externalities. How many jobs are you creating around the community to help improve lives within your sphere of operation? And then number 4 is, these guys, some of you are probably conversant with the IFC performance standards. You find a company like this that actually is implementing or is compliant with IFC performance standards. And then we look at where they are and what can we do to help them to get even better, right? Because for us, it's not just about the capital we bring. What else can we do with the company to help them get to higher standards than where they are?
Right.
So these are things for us that then becomes very important. But at the end of the day, whether it's debt or equity, when we sum up all these things, we have to make sure that our investment is going to help the company to create for the shareholders or the owners, and then we share that value as investors, really. So that's one project that we we are very proud of, that we think is very impactful for Tanzania.
Fantastic. That's great. I'll bring in now just a question that came in. So this is from Lawrence. He's asking, what appetite do investors or financiers have in controlled environment agriculture? Some call it vertical farming, right? Have you guys seen any of you specifically interested in it or less interested for certain reasons? Tsito, I see you nodding your head.
We actually have been looking for it, like for being based out of the Netherlands. We're quite in a hotspot in terms of innovation. So we've been looking at it for many years, and actually even applying it into Africa, and then where we can, like for example, if you look at Nigeria in Lagos, or like densely populated market, or can work in South Africa as well. The challenge that we had at that time, I think it's the challenge of being early in the market. Like the unit economics were not there yet. It was still like very much into an innovation phase. But now we see that it's becoming more commercial. We see in other markets, like recently, like South Korea, for example. South Korea has been quite a huge investment on that. So we are looking into that. That's actually for us part of our kind of investment radar as well. Look into vertical farming, indoor farming, and vertical farming. So and we see a complementarity between that and actually investing on like traditional field. One way you can look at it's also, for example, when you want to grow, like kind of use it as a nursery to speed up the time of growth of your rootstock, so that you shorten it and then be basically on the field much earlier, and with like a more stronger plant as well, planting material. So that is something I think which will, in terms of like, if you look at again the theme of food security, quite important as well. So yes, the short answer is yes. Yeah, we look into that.
Yeah, I think for us, the answer is yes. Definitely, it depends on the level of scale. So technology risk is not something that we're very keen to take on very early on. So we often tend to look for technologies that have already been proven. So greenhouse, and that kind of stuff. And we've actually invested in vegetable companies that produce under greenhouse environments. So the answer is yes. I think it goes back to at what stage is the technology proven, and what is the scale of the operation. Usually as NorFund, we prefer expansion. So the company ought to have done it for a while. They're profitable, they've proven the business model, they have the market that they're serving, and they have all the linkages that needs to serve that market. And what they need to do is to invest more capital to serve or to expand their capacity. Then it becomes interesting for us. When it's very early stage high technology risk, small ticket investments, then NorFund then is not the right partner in that case.
All right, I'm stepping in. William, Tsito, how are you guys?
We are fine. You felt a little bit lonely.
Okay, you guys are doing an awesome job. Thank you so much. No, it's great. Awesome. So we're doing the Q&A. There's a number of questions that came in. Okay. We have a question for William about, do you guys invest in beekeeping projects? A gentleman from Nigeria is asking. Abdul Salam. Do you have any experience with that?
No, we haven't invested in beekeeping before, but it's an area that we can look at. I mean, honey is part of the food supply chain. So depending on the scale of the project, quite frankly, I think the reason why we haven't looked at honey or beekeeping before is just the size. They're typically very small projects that NorFund's kind of capital is not geared for. Yeah.
Okay. And I would just have an open question over here. in relation to the international community and their perspective on the agriculture sector in Africa. One of the things that we've been looking at is, as there's so much more demand for food today, and the amount of supply of land is also limited. Africa has so much opportunity. There's so much opportunity in Africa with the amount of arable land. Is that something that the international community is properly addressing today? Is there more room for international agriculture, more growers to be opening up operations on the continent? What's your perspective on that?
Can I go first?
Yeah, please, William.
Yeah. So look, I think the international communities bring two things. One is capital at scale, and secondly is know-how, right? So right now, we are in early stages discussions with an Israeli company that is very experienced globally, looking at expanding the operations in the continent, because this is where the space is and the market is here as well. And in terms of economics, they're looking at reducing the cost of producing maize by half, because they've done it elsewhere. Those kind of dynamics, I think, speaks to international community. And for me, international community means international companies that are in ag to come into the continent and bring the know-how and the capital at scale, so that we can get out of this subsistence kind of farming that has left Africa poor and hungry for all this period, right? So we need to bring that capital, we need to bring that know-how into the continent to improve productivity, to invest in agriculture commercial at scale. Then we can produce enough food to feed Africa and feed the world.
Yeah.
I think if I can give two example on that, from the operator side, like as William say, we actually see increasing appetite for operators to come to Africa. They look at that as more of the global strategy, and an example is on on export, on the fruit industry, for example. We see more and more players from Latin America that actually, because basically the game in the export of fruit or fresh fruit and veg is to have a 52 week supply to the retail. And the players that want to be present both, for example, on the American market, Asian market, and European market, they're trying to diversify their production base, in different region. And the best way to address the demand from the European continent is actually doing it from Africa. Because it's shorter term to market. If you compare, for example, someone who grows blueberries in Chile and someone who grows blueberries, let's say in Morocco, it's 21 days versus 6 or 7 days, 4 days, to market. So that decreases your carbon footprint. It goes back to what you say on, there is this scrutiny on people on, food sustainability, or to consume better, etc. So then we see those players in different actually, sectors from Latin America or over, but like Latin America, we see it more and more to trying to that approach. So there is genuine interest to come to Africa for that, and looking for actually partners like us to co-invest or like operator local partners to also build the project, because they need to de-risk and to have that local knowledge of the market. So that's I think one aspect. The second aspect that we've seen is we're trying to mobilize more and more capital from institutional investors from Europe, US, or Asia. It's difficult because you have two stories to tell: the Africa growth story and then the Agri story. The African growth story, I think you see it in the tech industry, you see it in different, in different aspects. But then if you have the Agri side, then there is, that the land issue, and then, people look at the macro environment. So it's complicated. There's, I think, still a pedagogy to be done, but we see appetite because, as you just say, AZ, this is a land with, opportunities for land development, for climate, mitigation. So what we see is that we need to have that bridge. How do we convince them to make that step to invest? Because it's just, at the end of the day, it's a risk perception. Are they looking at the continent as one? They need to be more educated on different aspects of the countries. And I think there is a role of the investor community, obviously, but is a role as well of the public community to actually brand and talk about better, really, or to say, sell the African destination or the countries, the different countries, as investable destination, and have mitigate like a new perception of what the risk is. So we see those two trends, like both on the operator and both on the capital. And at the end, our job is to allocate capital where it's needed.
Right.
So those are the two things we see. So exciting trends, but still a lot of work to make it. And it can't only be done by funds like us. We really need kind of the public stakeholders to step in, governments, DFIs,
Yep.
because DFIs
Definitely.
through guarantee product, for example, they can mitigate the risk of these investors, etc., etc. So we have all the elements, the building blocks, but you have to fit it together and know to work, but in a market-driven approach as well. That I think is important.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's part of the role that we see ourselves doing at Empower Africa, right? Trying to help finding those relevant players, and so that we can enhance that collaboration and communication between the different parties. Question here for NorFund from John. Can you talk about the ticket sizes and the extent of direct investment vis-a-vis funds?
Thanks a lot. I should have done that at the introductory phase. So our minimum ticket is $5 million for minority stake. So the maximum we can take in a company is up to 35%. And our sweet spot is $10 to $20 million. So we tend to invest in slightly larger companies in an African context.
Right.
So both equity and debt and anything in between. So an instrument that we've seen being very attractive at the moment.
Okay, great, fantastic. And John, feel free, of course, to reach out to William or to me, anybody else on the Empower Africa team, and happy to discuss further. Let's see, we need to move on to the networking session. I do want to leave enough time because I want people to continue to interact. So we'll take the last question here. This is Madeline Winkler, living and farming in Nigeria, originally from Switzerland. I would like to know your perspective on funding bioorganic farming projects in Nigeria. Have any of you guys done something similar, or what are your thoughts on that?
On our side, we didn't fund any bioorganic project yet, not in Nigeria as well, but we're looking at it. And I think it still goes into the metrics that William and we presented at the beginning. If it fits into that and meets our mandate, then yeah, we look into it. Definitely, that'll be the short answer to that.
I mean, same for us, but we haven't invested in it. Yeah.
Great. I also want to just touch on that. There were a few people who wrote questions about aloe vera farming and other things. I'm saying this as a general term, right? Regardless if one of these gentlemen have a specific focus on it, I think it really matters the stage, and where the company is at, where the project is at. And so if you'd want to provide more information about that, I'm saying this to the people asking questions, I'm sure that will be helpful for both William and Tsito, because that, as opposed to just a general subsector or domain, but rather, here's my business. I've been, this is what we've been doing so far. And I'm sure, that would get a more precise answer. William and Tsito, is there anything else you'd like to say before we conclude the panel?
Well, thank you first, and then I think looking forward to the interaction, thereafter. I think it's a great initiative. that you guys doing at Empower Africa, and then it's hopefully we'll get opportunities out of this this event today. But thank you for having me.
Sure, it's a pleasure having you, William. Before I wrap it up, William, you want to say something?
No, thanks a lot for having us. I think from our perspective, we have the balance sheet to invest in agriculture in Africa. We are looking for opportunities to deploy that capital. So feel free to reach out if you have something that meets the kind of parameters that I explained earlier. Happy to look at it, and we are quick at responding. So don't we're not like the other DFIs that take forever. So rest assured that we will.
That is true. I can confirm that. That is very true. Okay, so again, thank you so much, Tsito and William, for joining us. The idea here of this event and all of our events is, again, to enhance the collaboration and communication. Many times we just don't know about each other, right? And as I was saying, I'm speaking to investors that are saying, yeah, we're looking for good projects. And then I'm speaking to entrepreneurs or other entities that have projects, and they just don't know about each other. So that's another reason why this event is built on the investors panel and then the implementers panel. Because as I think it was Tsito mentioned, there are many entities here that need to work together in order to lift a project off the ground. That's true in any country, in any region. But as we all know, it's true, of course, in Africa as well. And there's the funding side, which is you guys and many others. But then, of course, the know-how and how you actually implement it and make it happen. And so stay tuned for our next panel. For the implementers panel, it's going to be great. And like I said, we're moving now to a networking session, so you guys can continue meeting with each other and connecting and making meaningful connections and relationships. Feel free to reach out to anybody from Empower Africa in the meantime if you need any help. And again, if you're not a member yet of Empower Africa, download the app, both Apple and Android, or join through the links here in the messages and on the right and left side of the screen. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you really soon in the next panel.